Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending tonight. Tonight we're going to have Bernard Stacanti. I'm sorry, Bernard, if I messed up your name. He's going to be talking to us tonight about the Constitution and Bylaws session on the duties of the district judge advocate and pseudo parliamentarian. And Bernard, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, all. Good evening to Commander Kossoff and Commander Underwood. It's 42 degrees over here, partly cloudy and dark. Okay.
Is that judge advocate
next
duty?
slide. What's that, Chip?
I was thinking, is that a judge advocate duty to brief up on the weather?
Yeah.
Thanks,
So welcome
man.
all. Let's go. All right, let's go into it. All right, and that next slide.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, this is what we're going to talk about. All right, next.
Oh,
All right, this is out of the officer's guide. You know, we're talking about providing professional advice in the conduct of American Legion business. And for me, what that really comes down to is keeping meetings in good order. Also, be involved with the bylaws of a particular organization. And I guess this could range all the way from the post level up to the department level. In this next one here, it says procure proper counsel. And thinking about this, I believe that's probably more applicable at the department level. To do that or to get involved in that, I would have to think this would be something serious, to provide proper counsel. But maybe thinking about that, if counsel could be, is that an attorney or is it my input into the process? Could be either, I guess, but from my point of view, that would be giving guidance and direction from my perspective as the advocate to make sure, all right, if you have a question about conduct of a meeting, how do we keep it on track, et cetera, and then being able to give some of those answers or to help the commander, whoever it might be, keep things on track. Guardian of the constitutional form of the American Legion government, again, that has to come down to, I believe, more importantly, good conduct in the meeting, supporting the commander, supporting the chair of the meeting, make sure that things flow smoothly. Also, which was interesting right out of the guide, is it said that the advocate could also provide assistance to other committees, however they may be, however many there might be. If they have a question about the conduct of a meeting, should we do this, should we do that, should we follow Robert's rules, how do we make sure that we keep things on track, I could help them. And any of the officers that may be involved with some of these committees, could be the chair, all right? So again, it's just for good governance and keeping things on track. This one here about developing relationships with local government officials, I think that's probably more applicable at the department level, and I see that falling more in the bailiwick of the department commander. But I guess I could assist in that some way. It's just that, my influence would be somewhat very limited. So I think that one there probably more resides at the department level than it would, unless Larry Underwood had something he wanted me to do or both of us working together on something. I don't see that at the post level at all, unless we were going to have someone come to a meeting as a guest speaker. An audit, I know this is important at our Knights of Columbus Council, the trustees, which are the past Grand Knights, they do this a couple times a year. And that I know how important that is to make sure the books are straight. So I guess being that I'm in an appointed position that would, not voted on, I see myself there as providing an unbiased input and insight into if an audit's going to be done. I probably should be involved in that. Could call for one, I guess, but again, that falls on the the discretion of the commander. And I see these things here probably at all levels from the posted department. Now at the council level for the Knights of Columbus, we have an advocate at the council is equivalent to the post, all right? And we do have an advocate that's an appointed position also to the Grand Knight. But it's interesting that maybe someone could tell me who would do that at the post level. Would that be the adjutant? Could be the parliamentarian? Obviously, the chair, Joe Langren, our post commander, would be responsible to make sure meetings are kept in order. But there is no official position at the post level like there's a position at the district level. Next slide. All right, district level, appointed position. I work for a district commander, that's Larry Underwood. So I help him out, provide professional assistance as required, and to him and to the rest of the executive officers. And mainly, I see my main job is to facilitate keeping the executive meeting civil, cordial, respectful. This one here, the referee blowing the whistle too much. Good friend of mine, Jim Egan, is the advocate for our council. I talk to him a lot about these things, so he's sort of my mentor. He used this analogy to me, where if you're going to a game, say a basketball game or any sporting event, you don't want the referee blowing the whistle all the time. And we're seeing that in the NFL playoffs where they're letting things happen. All right, because the referees, that just wouldn't make for an enjoyable basketball game or a soccer match or whatever. So there's a mean between the extremes. You could be blowing the whistle too much, as the advocate standing up and points of order, blah, or not doing enough to assist the chair in keeping good order. So Jim says that you have to work at striking a good balance between being too loose and being too strict. All right. So that just takes, knowledge in the job and having a fingertip feel for when you need to stand up and help the chair, get things back on track. Next slide. Nice to have qualifications, yet not required. I talked to Larry about this when I volunteered for the job. I said, you have to be an attorney. That's not the case. And you really don't have to be a certified parliamentarian unless you want to go down that track. But you should get educated on things. Robert's Rules of Orders, 3rd edition. There's a book I have, the one for dummies. There are a number of books and pamphlets. Robert's Rules of Order online. I have that web page up here on my computer. Find a knowledgeable mentor like I have with Jim Egan from our Knights of Columbus Council, and have a reference guide handy that and maybe bring it to the meeting, because you can't thumb through a 200-page book trying to find something. So if you had a reference guide where you could, check real quick. All right, and that next. All right, some critical actions. So it comes training here for smooth running meetings, and this goes for anybody that might end up being the chair or an advocate to help the chair. You have the floor. All right. This concerns speaking or making a motion. A member must first be recognized by the chair. This just keeps things in good order. With only a few exceptions here, it says the chair does not have to recognize a member that has not officially requested recognition. For example, you just can't shout out, question to try to, end the debate and discussion. Call the question. You can't just shout that out. Or jumping in when a member has been recognized and has the floor. That's rude. But once recognized, you better make sure you know what it is you want to say. So before you stand up and end up making a fool of yourself, I say write it down, all right, your thoughts down, get recognition, stand up, point of order or whatever it might be, point of clarification, and da-da-da. And then you say, you want to make a motion to discuss X, Y, or Z. And then the chair would, then ask for a second, on the motion. If you don't get it, then it doesn't go forward. Actually, that happened to me this past weekend, trying to get one of a really good gentleman to be the deputy grand knight. And I stood up, asked for a point of order, made a motion to nominate this gentleman, and it didn't go anywhere. No one seconded it. So, but I do these things periodically because I want to get some training myself in how these things work. And this way I can bring them back. And I've done that with Larry at our meetings. I said, hey, here's an example. All right. This happened to me. That was involved with this. This is how it worked, et cetera, et cetera. But just make sure if you stand up and you get recognized, that you know and you have in your mind written down what it is you want to say. You don't want to be fumbling around. Okay, that's not good. Now, what's the exception? When I was talking to Jim Egan, he said to take this out. But I thought about it a bit. He said because you could end up opening a can of worms. Maybe we could hold that for question and answer. I was debating where to discuss this, but what would the exception be? Well, thinking about it a little bit, it's the agenda. If one of the officers is on the agenda like I am, our post meeting's coming up next week, I'm on the agenda to speak, the chair is not going to deny me recognition because it's already on the agenda. So I think that's one of the few exceptions. So the chair doesn't have to recognize someone. If someone's being a real pain or out of control, he doesn't have to recognize them at all, and that's it. It ends right there. So I think one of the exceptions to where a chair would not recognize a member would be, that one exception would be we're already on the agenda. You're not going to be told no, all right? So I think that's one of the few exceptions where this doesn't come into play because you're already, the agenda is official document. Okay, next. Oh, calling the previous question. All right, this is how you end debate and discussion. If it's dragged on way too long, I had to do this at back in October here at a board meeting for the Backcountry Association. This is exactly what was going on and on and on and on. I mean, with some of the people, it was like grabbing, a dog with a rag, just wouldn't let it go. And it was, we're getting on to 9 o'clock at night and beyond. So I stood up, sought recognition, and I called the previous question. And I said, I want to make a motion to end this discussion and have the board vote. All right. And they did, and it was over and off when we went on. They had 5 or 6 other agenda items to go over. And so we were able to move forward with the items on the agenda. So this is a way to end discussion and debate. So you seek recognition from the chair. You call the question. The chair asks for a second. If there's a second, a vote is taken. No more discussion, and it's 2/3 majority, not a simple majority, 2/3. If no motion, then it's tabled or killed. Discussion continues. But to end this discussion, somebody's going to have to stand up and call the question again, all right? So use judiciously. This is like an emergency pull on a train, all right? So you don't want to be pulling this card out too much. But at some point, the discussion has to come to an end, and this is how you do it. And it's the proper way. But again, just be very careful, be judicious, be cordial, be professional, and the chair has control of this complete, from top to bottom. Next. All right, agendas. They're published ahead of time. Robert's Rules talks about this. And actually, here's something that you can do. They actually can be read in for approval, just like the business meeting minutes from the previous month. We do that. You don't want to go through every line and thing. That's why you send them out ahead of time. And the chair says, I'd like to, go ahead and ask a motion to read in the minutes from the previous month. They're already been distributed. And but what happens if something's amiss? and it's in need of rearrangement. I saw this happen. Larry had to do this because of at a meeting there at Post 1. I think it was a district level. We had members from department. I think there was even a red hat or two. And he had to do a rearrangement of the agenda. And so that it had to go through a motion and et cetera, et cetera. No one objected to it because we had to make the arrangement was because some of the key speakers had to leave. So they had to move them up. So it happens. Now, if something's really out of whack, a member can stand up and seek recognition, state point of order. But again, you just can't jump up and do this. If there's really something out of whack, you got to say why. You got to have a good argument for why you did that and why the rules are being broken. All right. So again, it's like John Wayne used to say, don't pull the gun out of your holster unless you're planning to use it. All right. So you're going to have to really justify why, there's a problem here and et cetera. So it can be done. It's used from time to time, but, not normally. And the chair has the right to allow or disallow the point of order. And he or she could defer to the parliamentarian, the advocate, me on this case, on this issue. And please keep this in mind. Rarely does the chair ever skip an agenda item on purpose. All right. It's just could be an oversight. All right. So just have to be kind and we, keep things on track and be cordial and professional. Next slide.
Hold on one second, Bernard.
Sure.
One of the things I'd like to address here is when you were talking about the district convention. We always have our regular rules within our agenda. And what happened in this case, which I believe you're speaking about, is that we had District 5 and 6 were both meeting at the exact same time, and our officers needed to bounce back and forth between both of those conventions, and there was at least an hour drive in between the two. So that's one of the circumstances where the changing of the agenda was issued and the explanation given for why we were changing the agenda, and then it was voted upon and we went on. So okay.
All good. So that's the way it's done. Okay. Point of order usually raised when a member thinks its rights being violated or the toes are being stepped on. Be nice and use it sparingly. Okay. All right. Annette, could we contract this a little because it's cut off just at the bottom? The slide, maybe just lower the slide. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, got it. Yeah. All right. One last thing. This has to do with, and this you've seen this happen, I'm sure. People are talking, or comments are being made that are relevant to only one member. This has a tendency to extend out the meeting for all in attendance. They may have a bee in their bonnet or something, or burr in their saddle, and in this case, the chair of the parliamentarian acting on behalf of the chair could recommend that the discussion be taken offline, okay? Because it's really concerns a couple of people or this one person just had, it's not even on the agenda, right? So just take it offline, the sidebar discussion later. But however, it's possible that whatever this person, and this could be brought up in new business, I guess. Again, you got to be careful there because maybe this should have been addressed prior and then would have been on the agenda as a new business item. It's possible what this person has to say is relevant to the topic at hand. So you see, there's no black and white here. As Jim always points out to me, that it's you really have to have your finger on the pulse and kind of keep on top of things, and just realize that you don't want to be the referee blowing the whistle all the time or being too heavy-handed in this. So a good balance here to make sure things are run professionally, cordially, but it's, not overbearing. Okay, next. And I think we're at the end. All right, that's it. Questions? Comments?
I'd actually like to share
Answer.
something with you. Um, So when you were up top here, I'm going to scroll up here and talking about these exceptions here. Case in point, when someone's shouting out question, there's also something within Robert's Rules of Order called division. And this is another example of when this one of these exceptions can occur. And what that has to do with is when somebody's making a motion, but there are two points inside of the motion where the motion can actually be broken down into two different motions. So then you can call for a division to have them broken down and vote on them both separately. The only time that you can really run into a problem with that is if I'm sorry if I remember correctly, if there is an amendment to the first motion, then you need to take care of that before you can go on and take care of course, the second motion. So I just wanted to.
That's a good point. Yeah, and and actually, case in point, that happened to me. I had stood up, asked to be recognized because we were going to make a donation to a charity. This was at our Knights of Columbus meeting. Okay, and the grand knight can up to $500 can go ahead and write a check for something without having a vote. A lot of times they ask for it anyway, but I said $499. Then Jim Egan, my mentor, he stood up and said, "Wait a minute, I make a motion that we make it 500 because that's what it is." So there was a case where you had to take care of one first, and then you had to take care of the other next. So it was, and me being the secretary just made more work for myself trying to have to sort that out in the meeting minutes. So that was a case where you had two, and one you had an amendment to mine. All right, and so you had to take care of one, and then you took care of the other. So it was a couple of motions, a couple of seconds, and then two votes, one after the other. All right, but it worked out.
Well, that's a good thing. So there, that one example though that I gave you, that's actually a division of question. There's a couple other ones in Robert's Rules of Order that comes up, and we're starting to see division popping up a little more often than what we used to. So, because people are really getting into this Robert's Rules of Order and starting to study these books and learning some parliamentarian stuff. So, maybe it would be just a good idea for everybody to look over the division section in Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay.
And practice.
Because, and that's a good point, because you're mixing apples and oranges. You really should separate the two, because then it gets confusing. You want to deal with one, you don't want to have too many things in one motion, all right? Especially if they're not related. Do one, then do another. You could have somebody else make the motion for that other point, but you could start to get it to be a little bit convoluted if you're trying to mix too much stuff together.
Right. And a good way to remember that is just like with resolutions, it's strictly one topic per resolution. Right. So when we're dealing with motions, it's strictly one motion. One
motion. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey, Ben, this is
That's
Chip.
all I got.
Go ahead, Commander.
Okay. Back to slide 1, you were making a point about the officer's guide. Excuse me. And I wanted to kind of clear up, says maybe it's the next one. I want to clear up some issues in there. You were talking about, the officer's guide, I got it open in front of me. The primary duty at the post level for the judge advocate is to supply professional advice in the conduct of post business and or procedural matters, or like a parliamentarian. And clearly you don't have to have a lawyer at the post level to be the judge advocate, but the judge advocate should be well versed in the post constitution and bylaws in Robert's Rules of Order, and to supply that professional advice to the chair, the commander, or whoever's running that. Where at the post level, I also involved the judge advocate in the financial auditing of the accounts for that Constitution and Bylaw Council to make sure that everything is being done properly and to certify that the actual audit was conducted in good order, so that they can certify the audit to the post that the audit committee conducted it properly, and they're certifying nothing, there was no hanky panky going on, cooking the books or whatever. So although the one stipulation it's got, the one thing it says in there should maintain contact with local government officials. Now, I don't know why they put this on the judge advocate, but clearly every post should maintain contact with their local government officials. If it's the county, if it's the city, whatever it is, I think it's just good practice to be in contact with your local government officials, because they can help you in developing your programs at the post level. They can tell you about particular needs inside your community, things that the post can definitely assist with. Organized fundraising, organize information, putting it out to the membership and all that. But I don't know why the officer's guide puts this under the judge advocate. So I just wanted to offer that explanation to you, Ben.
Yeah, and Chip, it just struck me that position at our post, the one that I'm filling for Larry Underwood at the district level, is vacant. Yeah, we haven't had one since I've been, a member of the post. So that position is not filled.
Oh no.
And probably should be. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yeah.
Ben, I happen to know somebody that belongs to your post that's doing a pretty good job at being parliamentarian and judge advocate. Hint, hint.
Well, I can't do. I guess I could.
Yes, sir.
It would probably, give me more experience. I'd have to talk to Joe. Do you want me to be double-hatted? There at the post, both senior vice commander and the advocate. I wouldn't mind doing that, and because we really should have that filled. It really should be, because, yeah, absolutely. So that's why, Chip, I haven't experienced at the post because we haven't had that position. Somebody was in it before I joined, and whatever, they're gone, and it was never filled, and so it's vacant.
Well, I think it is a good position to be filled, and I would not see any conflict of interest with being the judge advocate for the post and also being the judge advocate for the district. There are two separate constitution and bylaws. You need to know which hat you're wearing when you're acting as the judge advocate, and clearly Robert's Rules of Order are applicable to both in the same fashion. So yeah, there's no issue with you being both.
And if I can offer something here. So we had a couple of years ago an event that took place north of Aurora, and it was within our district, and it involved a staff member of one of our congressional leaders. And what had happened, this is where I think the district judge advocate would come into play. So when the information came out about that, the district commander should have been notified immediately. And then you yourself as the judge advocate needed to be involved in the conversation. Usually a letter is written or something along the lines that, there's a standard reply that probably department's more aware of than I am. But, so it just, again, it works its way up the chain. And then eventually the department commander will release a statement and write a letter to, whoever it is. And I think that's just how the judge advocate can play an important role in within the district, because you help to gather the information as to what went on before department gets involved.
Right.
Now, one of the good things at the department level, my judge advocate is actually a circuit court judge. So he is very, very knowledgeable clearly on the law and the legalese of everything. So he can help explain to me, my simple carpenter self, what some of the issues are when I can't make heads or tails out of the verbiage in certain, rules and whatever. He's very good at helping me explain that. But I think you're right. While at the post level, you don't need to be a lawyer. You just need to be knowledgeable about your Constitution and bylaws. But to actually have a lawyer / judge at the department level is very beneficial.
Sure. Yep.
Well, that's all I wanted to add to that, Ben. I wanted to thank you. This has got hopefully given everybody a lot of food for thought about how they're gonna conduct business.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Larry Underwood. Hey, you're doing a great job, man, and
Thank you.
I appreciate you every day. One of the reasons I wanted you on board is initially when I took over, like about last March, our meetings were lasting 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And it was primarily getting into discussions, and arguments ensued, and going back and forth. And you want everybody to speak, but you don't want the meeting to get out of control. And I know you and I have talked about that, and I was very open to you as far as stepping in during the meetings, and I want you to continue to do that.
Okay.
If you're going to have a 2 hour or 2.5 hour meeting, you're not going to get folks to attend the meeting. It's got to be cordial. As Chip's told me a number of times, you have to be nice, and that's the way we want to do it. And believe it or not, if you run a really strict meeting and everybody does their job and everybody gets to speak, you can do a meeting in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And you'll get
Yeah.
more people within the district to come to your meeting if it doesn't take all night. So I just want to tell you, I really appreciate you, and I want you to be more involved.
Let me make a point on that one. The VFW post I belong to, when we first started off, we were running into long meetings, and we decided to put in the bylaws. When the gavel goes down, someone starts a clock. 60 minutes later, we start the closing procedures. And if there's any other business to be done, that's carried over to the next meeting. The only time we'll run over that 60 minutes is if we have a special guest, we got an award ceremony, or we have, some type of special speaker. Otherwise, we're able to get the business done in under 60 minutes. Okay. And it's good having that clock running, because this keeps people on point.
And this is Ben Stancotti. Whatever works for a particular organization, and Jim Egan's counseled me on that. Different things work for different groups, and so you got to find what works best for you. And Dennis, that's a good one, and that seemed to work well for you all. It might not work for some other organization, but it's not bad to hear these things, because then you can decide, okay, what tool in the toolbox will work best for us to make sure these meetings don't go on to infinitum. You're right. And then people are going to lose interest. Why are you going to waste your time, at something that's just dragging on? And so find what works best and then go with it.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Well, and if not, then we'll go ahead and bring this to a close tonight. And again, I want to thank you, everybody, for attending and providing some questions and suggestions and a couple little answers. And thank you to everybody. And hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks on the next call. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night all.
It was fun.
Thank you, Ben.
Yep. Was it? Always a pleasure.